On July 6th, 2026, in a humid Dallas stadium, one of the greatest careers in the history of international football came to an end. Not with a trophy, not with a celebration, with a single loss, 1-0 against Spain. You already know his name. What you might not know is just how strange it is that this ending happened at all, given everything that came before it. Start with the scale of what Cristiano Ronaldo actually built across 2 decades of World Cup football. 6 tournaments. 2006, 2010, 2014, 2018, 2022, and finally 2026. No other man in the history of the sport has played in 6 World Cups. And it isn't just appearances that make his record remarkable. Ronaldo became the only player ever to score in 6 different World Cup tournaments, a record that spans an entire generation of teammates, opponents, and even entire eras of how the game is coached and played. Think about that for a second. The sport itself changed multiple times over the course of his career, and he kept scoring through every version of it. This year's tournament added one more milestone to an already staggering list. His penalty goal against Croatia made him the oldest goalscorer in World Cup knockout stage history, at 41 years and 147 days old. Only one man in the entire history of the tournament has ever scored an older age during the group stage, Cameroon's Roger Milla, back in 1994. Ronaldo sits second on that particular list, separated from the record by roughly 2 months of age. How does a player stay competitive at the highest level of international football, at an age when most professional athletes have been retired for over a decade? Now, consider the one thing that never happened, despite all of it. Cristiano Ronaldo never won a World Cup. Not once, across 6 attempts, spanning 20 years. He captured domestic titles across multiple countries. He won Portugal's first ever major trophy at the European Championship back in 2016. He added 2 UEFA Nations League titles on top of that. But the World Cup, the single trophy considered the ultimate prize in the sport, stayed just out of reach every single time he chased it. This year's tournament ended in the round of 16, a full step earlier than many expected, closing the door on that particular chapter for good. The match itself tells its own story. Portugal entered the knockout rounds against Spain, and the game stayed close throughout, decided by a single goal. Before the match, Ronaldo had acknowledged this would be his final World Cup appearance, regardless of the outcome, but he'd also said he hoped it wouldn't be his final match of the tournament. The hope didn't hold. Portugal's manager, Roberto Martinez, announced his own departure from the role immediately after the loss, calling it the end of a cycle for the team. When you consider how much of Portugal's modern footballing identity has been built directly around Ronaldo's presence over the last 20 years, that phrase carries more weight than it might first appear to. What's genuinely interesting about how Ronaldo responded afterward is what it reveals about how he seems to measure his own career. He's spoken publicly, more than once, about not needing the World Cup to validate what he's already accomplished. He's framed his relationship with the sport as something closer to passion than obligation, insisting he never played out of necessity, but because he genuinely loves the game itself. Whether or not you find that framing convincing, it's worth noticing how consistently he's repeated it, tournament after tournament, loss after loss, as the trophy kept slipping further out of reach with each passing cycle. This ending doesn't mean Ronaldo is finished with football entirely. His farewell applies specifically to international competition with Portugal. He's expected to continue his club career with Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League, a team he recently led to a domestic league title. So this isn't retirement in the broadest sense. It's the closing of one very specific chapter, arguably the most historically significant one, while the rest of his career continues elsewhere. Consider what this moment actually represents within the broader story of this World Cup. Ronaldo wasn't the only legend playing what turned out to be his final tournament this summer. Neymar completed his own last dance for Brazil in this same tournament, on the very field where his international career had begun back in 2010. Guillermo Ochoa closed out Mexico's campaign in tears, bowing to fans before leaving the pitch for the final time. An entire generation of players who defined international football for the better part of 2 decades all seemed to reach their final chapter within the same handful of weeks. Is it coincidence that so many legendary careers converged on the same ending point? Or is it simply what happens when an entire generation ages together, chasing the same tournament, year after year, for 20 years straight? Here's the detail that captures the whole story better than any statistic could. After the loss, Ronaldo told reporters he was sad to leave the World Cup this way, but that he'd given everything he had and was walking away with a clear conscience. 20 years, 6 tournaments, more goals than almost anyone who has ever played the game, and still, no trophy to show for any of it. Yet by every account from the people around him, he didn't sound like a man who felt cheated by that outcome. He sounded like a man who had simply run out of time. On July 6, 2026, in a humid Dallas stadium, one of the greatest careers in the history of international football came to an end. Not with a trophy. Now, you know it ended the way almost every truly great career eventually does. Not with triumph, but with the simple, quiet acceptance that the story is finally fully complete.